First, there was the US demand for North Korea's complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization. Then the language changed during the course of last year from CVID to FFVD, or Final Fully Verified Denuclearization. Now what? Language matters, always, but especially when high-level diplomats craft statements on sensitive matters. On this latest edition of K-News Today, we're looking at shifting expectations for a North Korea agreement. I'm Alex Jensen. After an intense period of pressure against the North under US President Donald Trump, criticism of the American leader has long since gone beyond the point of cliché. And as he himself faces mounting pressure at home, could he be more likely to bend even slightly to North Korean leader Chairman Kim's will? We heard from Kim, for example, on New Year's Day, when he proposed capping his country's production of nuclear weapons in return for the lifting of sanctions. Now, that doesn't sound a lot like full or complete denuclearization, but the US seems to be considering it. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told Fox News that they're discussing lots of ideas about how we might continue to decrease the risk to the American people. Some conservatives in South Korea are worried that could mean Washington is softening, preparing to accept the elimination of the North's intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, instead of full denuclearization. The reality is that the South Korean government has been pushing for a relaxation of sanctions against the North anyway, in a bid to achieve quite the opposite of what some fear. President Moon Jae-in's overarching aim appears to be to achieve peace rather than denuclearization as an end in itself. This distinction matters because it explains his push for cooperation and the sanctions relief that requires, next to Washington's previously stated position that it will only relax punitive measures against Pyongyang after denuclearization. Concerned conservatives here are even more on edge because the South Korean Defense Ministry's white paper just deleted a phrase defining the North Korean army as the country's main enemy. Aside from the fact that President Moon arguably already went further than that with last year's peace rhetoric, Pompeo is still sticking to his ambition, though, getting to full and final denuclearization at some stage. So some might say we're reading too much into what he said, but consider also that the US State Department has reportedly decided to open the way for humanitarian aid to North Korea, as Washington's been under pressure from the United Nations and private agencies to stop using its power to block life-saving support for the North. It was a message that was underscored a week ago when UN Human Rights Rapporteur on North Korea, Thomas Ohea Quintana, insisted that the issue of sanctions will have to be addressed as soon as possible. Perhaps the problem was the US publicly stating this highly ambitious goal of complete, verifiable and irreversible denuclearization in the first place, and making inflexible sanctions the ultimate tool to bring that about. A more gradual process with conditions attached might have been more realistic and might have allowed the dialogue process to continue without such a long deadlock. The master of war and peace, Leo Tolstoy, wrote, "The two most powerful warriors are patience and time. Rather tragically, those with the least amount of those are the elderly relatives separated by the Korean border, who would have been hoping for at least video reunions over the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday, but it looks like they'll also be victims of this ongoing stalemate."